Morning, everyone. Hope you're all well and had a good weekend. We are continuing with learning our Mishnah this morning. It's dedicated in memory of Leah Bas Bible, Tzivia Bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shlomo ben Yisrael Morris, Eliezer ben Shmuel Teret, Eliezer Shalom ben Avram Shmuel Beres, Tipora Fegela Bas Reuben Baruch, Shalom ben Elialiv, Dana Bas Bible, Truma Shoshana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, and the Yortzites, Avram ben Yitzchak Cohen, Sora bas Herschel, Moshe ben Chaim Zev Fox, Pesach ben Yitzchak, Shlomo ben Yisrael Zev HaKohen, Yitul bas Yehuda, Brana Rachel bas Moshe Aaron, Michael Chaim ben Moshe, wishing each of their respective families long life and only simchas. So yesterday we mentioned about the Mishnah that requires us to recite a prayer every Shabbos, which is Shlomo Shel Malchus, for the well-being of the government, right? So we all know the very humorous part of Fiddler on the Roof, or one of the humorous parts, which is the prayer for the Tsar, which is we pray for the Tsar that he should be kept far away from us. So the question which we didn't answer and we were left with yesterday is what happens in a situation where we have where we have people living in a country like Germany pre-war, where you had a Nazi regime. Would you pray for your enemies, right? Would you pray for somebody, for an institution or for a government, for an establishment that is hell-bent on your destruction and makes those intentions very clear? It's an interesting question. I've done a bit of research, and it turns out that firstly, around the time, we have to bear in mind the time of the First World War, where you had Jews that were on both sides fighting for Germany in the First World War, fighting for Britain on the First World War, and they both prayed, of course, for the welfare of their country, for their government, and also that they should destroy their enemies, which were other Jews, right? Which is quite ironic. I found it here. Let me just see if I can find it quickly for you. And in fact, they say there were more Jews that were killed in the First World War, I think on the German side, but certainly there were more Jews that were killed than all of Israeli conflicts to date, which is astounding. So here it is. So there was a prayer that after 1938, there was only one shul that was allowed until the war to remain in operation, because it was considered in Berlin an educational institution. So the Nazis made it very difficult for people to gain entrance, and they had the suspicions, but officially it was an educational institution. And the prayer that was recited, which is when the Nazis were in control: turn away from the gates of our country's pestilence the sword and hunger, in order that all its children could dwell in quietude and at ease. May the sound of crime never be heard in our borders, when you eradicate war from the face of the earth. The prayer was rewritten, so that, in a way, it was a prayer for the well-being in the country, but not necessarily extolling the virtues and praying for the welfare of the government. So that was at the time of but they did pray nonetheless up to the war for there was a prayer still recited for Shlomo Shel Malchus, despite the fact that it was a Nazi Germany. But the prayer, obviously, as we just discussed, was adjusted. But very interesting. We can discuss at another time the variations on that. Let's go on and discuss about the Mishnah of today, which is Rabbi Hananu ben Chachinai Omer. He used to say as follows: somebody who's awake in the middle of the night, he's up late, or somebody who travels alone at night, or somebody who's got extra time on their hands. He's basically putting his life in danger. Now, what is the common denominator in all these things? Why is it Why is it that Hanil Balayla, somebody who's up during the night, somebody who's on the journey alone, right? Or why is it that somebody who's got nothing to do, why are all these things considered putting one's life in danger? And there are two approaches that are taken by our commentators, but one by the Bartanura and one by Rabbeinu Yonah. Bartanura, who was lived in Italy, was a great commentary on the Mishna, said as follows, that that there are physical dangers that are presented at night, right? So there was, there were dangers lurking, physical dangers that were around, wild animals and people that would, that would kidnap people at night. So therefore, if a person was around at night, right, or was, that would present a danger. The Rabbeinu Yonah says that rather than it just being a dangerous period of time, and if a person's just, wandering around, he can get himself into trouble. But Rabbeinu Yonah says that it's a time when we're not working. If we are not working, then we should be dedicating ourselves to positive pursuits. In other words, during the day, we're all busy with work, we're busy earning a living. There's no expectation when you're earning a living. You can't learn Torah. You can't necessarily do all the things that we would love to do in terms of our Jewish faith. But when it comes to night, and we've finished work, right? The question is what we should be busying ourselves with, and that really shows us and reflects on whether the work during the day is an excuse or whether genuinely the reason why we can't, let's say, learn Torah or we can't spend more time praying is because we are involved in work, or whether that's just an excuse. So the Cosgo Rebbe apparently once came to, they remember at that time, the Cosgo Rebbe were dealing with 18th century, I think around the 18th century, they had horse and cart, and it was the Advent when the railways were just starting. Maybe it was late 18th century, and they brought the Cosgo Rebbe, one of the great Hasidic masters. They brought him to a new railway station, right? Imagine they're all on horse and cart, and all of a sudden they see these trains pulling in, right? Steam trains. So he was shocked by what he saw. He saw people alighting and descending, coming off the trains, and everyone was rushing off and on the trains. And that was something which was an anathema to what he was used to. And he said apparently at the time, he says, I don't understand where and why are they rushing? What are they rushing for? In other words, when we have new innovations, there is a danger that we have greater opportunities, more possibilities, and that leads us to being more distracted, and therefore we don't not necessarily as focused, and therefore we don't spend the time on the things that we should, right? If that was true at the time of steam trains, how much more so in our generation with social media and all the other things that we spend so much time. You have this device on your phone where you can measure how much time you've been staring at the screen, or you need it on all your devices. But the point being that we are saying that there is a real danger. If a person has this vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum, and therefore there's a real danger that it will be filled, or we will fill it with the wrong things, looking at the wrong things, thinking the wrong things. And therefore it is an imperative that we make sure that we put ourselves, we busy ourselves and set up a program and a structure that we feel we are able to accomplish and to achieve in our personal lives, our private lives, our Jewish lives, so that it's a meaningful life that we are able to live. Okay, we're going to stop there for today. There is more online about the different prayers that were said for the Tsar and for all the other governments that we've had, Napoleon Bonaparte and the like. You can look it up afterwards yourselves. But fascinating that the Jews of all people, as we said yesterday, have always recited a prayer for the well-being of the government. So Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and may I dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. We now recite a memorial prayer for all those that are currently saying Kaddish or would be saying Kaddish. El Malay Rachamim Sheikhin Barnon Mim Amasim Nukhana Al Kampeshin Amalos Kadeshim Mitarim Kazarakim Asim Es Nishmais Leabas Bible Tivibas Mordechai Avram ben David Slavin Shlomo ben Yisrael Morris Eliezer ben Shmuel Teret Eliezer Shalom ben Avram Shmuel Beres Zipporah Fegelabas Reuven Baruch Shalom ben Eli Bainabas Bible from Rosh Hashanah Bas Yaakov Shmuel. Yeah, Avram ben Yitzchak Cohen, Sarabas Hershel, Moshe ben Chaim, Zev Fox, Pesach ben Yitzchak, Shlomo ben Yisrael, Zev HaKohen, Yito bas Yehuda, Brana Rachel bas Moshe, Aaron Michal Chaim ben Moshe Yisrael, Shalcholi Elamon Began Eden Temenuch Osam Lachin Balarachamim, Yastirein Beseisa Kanafab Lianamim, Yitzobas Chaim Zeshmasam Adonai Nachlasam, Vianuchu Bishlam Mishkavam, Venaimar Amen. Refuah Shlema prayer for all those that are unwell. Rumisha Bechavisenu Avram Yisrael Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Vivak Rapes Acholim Bavush Adam Bispalim Baburam Bisrael Kadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachim Aleichem Rachman Fosam Yishlach Lem Refuah Shlema Neshmaim Lecholivem Besoch Shach Yisrael Refuah Nefesh Fusakov Hashtabagas Makarib and Amar Amen. Just want to end with one story. Firstly, we wish long life to all those that have Yortzeit, all those that would be saying Kaddish, and we hope and pray, and we are planning round the clock now to get us back to some semblance of normality with shul life, where there'll be an opportunity to say Kaddish. But in the meantime, let me just end with this beautiful story that Rabbi Danny Kirsch of the JLE shared many years ago, and it made an impression on me. And it's relating to the fact that we just spoke about in the First World War, you had Jews that were fighting against each other. Jews that were on the British side, Jews that were on the German side, and they were fighting, literally hand-to-hand combat, right, in the trenches, Jews against Jews, because they were loyal to their countries in which they lived. And he tells the story about, I don't know whether it's true or apocryphal, but here we go. The story goes that it was in the dead of the night, and this German are told to march forward, and these British soldiers were marching forward, and all of a sudden they're about to strike each other, and the moon comes out from under the clouds, and they look up at the moon, realizing it's Rosh Chodesh, and they say the prayer that we say, and then they recite Shalom Aleichem, and then the other one recites Aleichem Shalom. In other words, at the time when they had that moon which was shining on them, that clarity of vision, they were able to recognize and see, rather than it being a foe, an enemy, it was actually a friend, and therefore they put their arms aside and instead embraced in arms. But I think it's a beautiful story, probably not true, but I don't know, but you can ask him. But the idea is that sometimes in the darkness of night, we see people as our enemy. We see people that are against us in the heat of a moment of an argument. And it's when we have those moments where the moon, there's a glimmer of light, there's the moon shining so brightly that therefore we are able to see that actually the person that was opposing us was actually looking out for us. They were interested in our welfare. And I think it's an important message that when we are so often we don't see the wood from the trees, and therefore we should try our utmost as we head towards the 3 weeks, which is a sad period for the Jewish people, a period which is filled with so many tragedies that have befallen our nation, and we'll discuss them in due course. But it's a time when also there was sinat china, minus hatred. Jews didn't get along, which caused the destruction of the Second Temple, and it's important for us to ensure that we do everything and do our utmost, especially with this terrible pandemic that we are still suffering from, that we should all be able to display and to show brotherly love, sisterly love one to another. Wishing everyone well. Have a great day. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you tomorrow, please God. Take